This is how you do a continental stitch. I'm going to be showing you on a 10 mesh canvas. That means the holes, there are 10 holes per inch or 10 stitches per inch, however you would like to calculate it. It all comes out about the same. And I didn't color this in because I want to be able to show you guys what the thread looks like over it and really what I'm doing here. When I start on a project, I like to start on the upper right hand corner. If you're a left-handed stitcher, you can start on the bottom left corner and it's going to be about the same. So I'm going to start from the back. I'm going to pull my thread through just till there's a little bit behind, just enough to kind of grab it down. This is called anchoring your thread. This is my favorite way to start and stop. I'm going to go diagonally from left to right. I'm going to pull my thread through and then come back up through the back of the canvas right next to my very first stitch. As you can see, by doing that, I was able to kind of tie a very small loose knot over my thread. We will continue to do this until it's securely down, again going from bottom left to top right. You'll hear people refer to these as states, so I'm going from Arizona to Maine, or as I like to say, Arizona to New York, just because that is how I learned. So again, crossing over that diagonal, and now at this point our thread is 100% secured, it is fully knotted, and you can let go of anchoring your thread down and continue stitching. So all the way across for Continental, you are going to stitch going left, Arizona to New York, bottom left to top right. When you are pulling your stitches through, you want to make sure that your tension, which is the amount of force you pull your thread through, is consistent. This will help your threads lay nice and evenly. This is something that you just learn over time as you experience stitching more. So don't fret about tension in the beginning, but if you do notice your threads are a little uneven, that might be one of the reasons why. As you can see, as I start to stitch, my threads are starting to twist a little here. That is completely normal and totally fixable. So what you'll do is you'll just kind of let your needle hang. I like to follow it along and roll it out. This will also help keep your stitches even. So we are coming up on the last few stitches of our top row. And now what we're going to do is we are going to go right below it and go to our second row. Continental, like the word says, is just going in a straight line back and forth. On the way back, the way I like to explain it, again, if we're using geography, is we're making a return flight home. Again, starting in the back of the canvas, you're going to come up through a hole. You're kind of sharing this hole with these two threads above it. So you're going to come up through this hole and take your return flight home from New York to Arizona, from top right to bottom left. We do this because we want to have full coverage on the back of the canvas. You can see my thread is rolling up on itself, so I'm going to let my needle hang, kind of pull it out, and then we are good to go. Needlepoint is all worked in intersections, so we are trying to cover each intersection in our grid, again coming from top right to bottom left. Coming up on the last few stitches of this line, we are now going to move down to the line right below it, right here, and we are going to do our original direction. So because we're moving from right to left on the canvas, our stitches are going from left to right. So it kind of is like whatever way you're working, your stitches will go the opposite, if that makes sense. So Arizona to New York, Arizona to New York. We are coming to the last few stitches of this thread. I personally like to use every single last bit of thread that I can, so I really stretch it to the end. You can start to tie off whenever you'd like. I think this will be my last stitch. Keep your needle on your thread. You're going to flip over your back, and this is what your back should look like in a continental stitch. You are now going to anchor this thread below. Just find a little bit of stitches that you can put your needle underneath. I usually like to pick 4 to 5 stitches, push my needle through, pull it out, and then just make sure that this is tightened. You can, if you'd like, go in and snip this right away. If you don't want to, you can also leave that there. So that is how we just stitch our first line. Now I'm going to show you how to start a new line, or if you were to start a new color, anything like that. We are going to thread the needle, and instead of anchoring down again, we're actually just going to anchor underneath a couple other threads. So pick up right where I left off, pick a few stitches, pull that through, and then continue stitching. For your first 2 stitches, you will need to make sure not to pull this too tight, because if you pull it too tight, it will just come through because it's not actually anchored down. This is just a little guidance to help it get there. So we want to have that there and do 2 stitches around. So coming from bottom left to top right, being gentle on that first tug, bottom left to top right, and then at this point you should be pretty good to go to continue on stitching. What I really like about Continental is that it is a stitch that's going to get you wherever you need to go, no matter if it is a really small project or a larger one. The Continental stitch is always going to be there no matter what. You can use it horizontally, but you can also use it vertically, diagonally, anything like that. So just to show you, because we're coming up on this last line, I'll show you what it would look like if we were to go down the canvas. So going down, you always want to think about what will provide the most coverage on your back when you're stitching. So if I drop down 1 row and continue my Arizona to New York, and then come up right below, Arizona to New York, think about the back of this thread, how it is now taking the longest route it can to get here. So it's really coming across. That's the idea of Continental, is you want to be able to really cross the plane instead of like a half cross stitch where you're coming right next to it. So if you're going down, you are going Arizona to New York. We are on our last intersection here, and now if we were to go up, we would be going New York to Arizona. So Continental is always great for straight lines or little pockets of area where you can't do another traditional stitch. And then we're gonna pop in our last stitch of this row, and then we are going to anchor it underneath our previous stitches. Okay, there it is. That is how you do a continental stitch horizontally or vertically.